Hello, and following on from a previous video of how your van could be illegal, today we're going to be discussing wild camping and what a beautiful place I find myself in. Lovely, quiet, scenic, picturesque. Pull over, cook some food and stay the night. But is it legal? Can you do it? It's often believed you can park up and stay the night absolutely anywhere, especially in Scotland, but that's not necessarily true. But there are many laws, rules and regulations which are quite open to interpretation, not always very clear. So today we're going to have a look at some of those. We're going to take a look at the new law which has just come in 2022, which I do know has caused quite a lot of concern between motorhome and campervan owners. So we'll have a look at that later on. Plus I've also got some tips on how you can greatly improve not only your experience, but the experience of others also. Let's start with the Road Traffic Act. Under the Road Traffic Act, you're not allowed to park unless you've got permission from the landowner. But who owns the land? You don't know who owns the land, and it's not always easy to find out. You would think that the public roads which you drive on for housing estates, they're owned by the local authority, but it's quite often that they are not. A lot of the new developments these days, the responsibility for the roads sometimes does actually stay with the developer. And then you've obviously got, for example, Dartmoor National Park. Well, that's controlled by separate bylaws, which you'll see on some of the signs around the park. And they do specifically say no motorhomes, no campervans, no camping, no fires, things such as that. Golf courses, they've often got quite long driveways. Well, they could be ideal for some overnight parking, but it's probably the golf course that owns it. So you'd need to speak to that landowner to be able to park overnight there. Local authority parking is often covered by traffic regulation orders which actually prohibit camping, cooking and sleeping. For example, this one here is the Torbay government website which explains what their stance is, and in simple terms, campervans and motorhomes can park in the car parks and also on the street parking subject to certain criteria being met, making sure that you're actually in the marked bays and you're not actually overhanging the bays. Sometimes under circumstances, if you do take up more than one bay, you are actually able to buy multiple tickets, and if that is a regulation which is for your council in your particular car park, buy a couple of tickets and you can still be within that. However, going on from that, if we do look again at the Torbay one, it does say that overnight sleeping or camping is not allowed, nor is heating, cooking or preparing of food. So you do need to make sure that you do check the signage around, check the local government websites to make sure that you aren't actually contravening any of the regulations which are in place for where you're intending to stay. So you don't have the landowner's permission, so you don't actually have the right to actually camp there. But what if you do? What can happen if you do? Well, we're going to find a bit more about that in a future video, because I'm not in law, I'm not a police officer. This is just particularly my interpretation, but we are going to be finding out definitive what can happen to you, what are the possibilities, again in a future video. But for now, let's move on to the new law, which really has caused a bit of a stir amongst some of the campervanning and motorhome community. Until the new law, wild camping has not actually been within the jurisdiction of the police. It's not been a police matter. It's come under the common tort of trespass. But that is until now, with this new law which has come out in May 2022. And the new law being the Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Act of 2022. There are several parts of this, and as you see here, the bit which we're interested in is the unauthorised encampments. So the Act creates a new criminal offence of residing with a vehicle on land without permission. So rather than previously, which was you'd be committing trespass, you would be trespassing, now it is actually a criminal offence which is punishable by imprisonment, fines or seizing of your vehicles. But don't worry, it's not bad at all. In fact, it's actually relatively quite clear what it is, so don't panic. So what I've got on my screen here is a fact sheet, and the fact sheet goes into detail of what this actual law is. So the Act creates a new offence in England and Wales, which gives the police the powers to seize property, including vehicles, where individuals reside or intend to reside on land with a vehicle. So that's obviously you in your camper van. The offence will be committed if a person resides or intends to reside with a vehicle on land, fails to leave the land or remove their property without reasonable excuse when asked to do so, and they have caused or are likely to cause significant damage, disruption, or distress. There you go, simple. It says it there all in one sentence. If you're asked to leave, you leave. Simple. If you don't leave, and you're likely to cause damage, disruption, or distress, then that is when you're committing the criminal offence. But if you leave, you don't cause any damage, you don't cause any distress or disruption, you're absolutely fine. So there's nothing to worry about. This isn't this awful law which people think it is. 99.999% of campervanners, motorhomers, wild campers, stealth campers, informal camping, free camping, whatever you want to call it, they're not going to be causing these things. But it does go on to say the maximum penalty will be 3 months imprisonment or a fine not exceeding level 4, which is £2,500 on a standard scale, or both. So you could be imprisoned for 3 months, and you could have a fine not exceeding £2,500. So it could be a costly exercise. But you're not going to do that because most people aren't going to do that. But then it goes on to say, so if you are asked to leave the particular camping spot which you're in, you're not allowed to return to that spot for at least 12 months. Which most people are not going to do anyway. You're going to park somewhere else next time and might get asked to move on from there. The arrest and vehicle seizure powers can be used when a trespasser has met the conditions of the offence and not left the land when asked to do so without reasonable excuse. And it's for the police to decide on the proportionate enforcement action based on the circumstances and evidence of each case. Important here, as you read down, and I'll pop the link of this below so you can have a good read of it yourself, because I am just picking out parts of it here. 4.3 is quite important because it really is saying, don't worry, if you're going to the land to use it in a respectful manner, not cause any damage, not cause any disruption, leave if you're asked to leave, you are not going to be criminalised because of it. The offence does not apply where no harm is caused, ensuring that a person will not be criminalised for their mere presence on the land. So that is nothing to worry about. So what's the problem? I can't see any problem with that at all. It doesn't actually give you any right to be there. If you've not got the landowner's permission, you've not got the right to be there anyway. What it is saying is, if you do this, you could be criminalised. If you don't, if you are like 99.99% of people who aren't going to cause a problem, are going to be respectful, you're not going to have a problem. So it's fine. It's not going to be a problem at all. So in a future video, I am actually going to be bringing on an expert, somebody to talk about what could happen if you have parked on somebody's land and you haven't got their permission. What's the worst that can happen to you? Is it that you're just asked to move on? Or would you be potentially committing another offence if you'd parked on a public road or some particular land? I'm going to be talking more on wild camping, specifically in Scotland, in a later video, because this is often a misconception. Right to roam. I can wild camp wherever I want. I've got my camper van. There's more to it than that, and I will discuss that. So like I've said, I'm not a practicing lawyer. I'm not a solicitor. I've got no experience in the law profession. I'm not a police officer. I don't work for the government about the laws. Yeah, this is just my interpretation. So please do research yourself and make sure that you do know what laws are there, and making sure that you're not breaking them. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do have a look at my others. I've got my Is Your Van Potentially Illegal, or some bad conversions. Do stay tuned for a lot more. Mentioned a couple of more future videos in this, and I've got a lot more than that coming up soon. So for now, take care. Thanks for watching.